Hello everyone. Today I think my video is going to be called 3 things that I've learned living off grid. Um, Comfort over convenience. I think a lot of times those things are interchanged. We consider convenience to be comfortable, and the things that I'd like to submit is that doesn't really have to happen. We know in the event of a major collapse or of some big problems, even if it's localized, convenience is not really going to be available, and that is oftentimes what, at its core, we prepare for in the prepping community, is a time when convenience is no longer there. And so what I'd like to have is comfort over that convenience, not allowing convenience to be a substitute for comfort. Because nobody wants to be uncomfortable for a long time. So let's go ahead and talk about comfort. Um, the first thing that I learned is that I really need to be able to be comfortable in my own home and in my everyday life. I can handle uncomfortable situations for a small amount of time. And I think that's pretty common to everybody, right? We can all tolerate uncomfortable situations for a season, and then we need to be able to get that comfort back. This was very, very clear during the pandemic, where lots and lots of things that we've had to do are very uncomfortable, and doing that for an extended period of time, it wears on your mental state, it wears on your ability to accomplish things each day and work, and that's really, really important. So how I accomplished this is I kind of go through my house and I have lists of inventory, of what I have in my house and what I need to manage and what I need to do on a daily basis. And what I did is I went through and I systematically said, okay, what could I go without for a set amount of time and be comfortable? And then that's what I prioritized with preparation. So I'll give you an example. So I went through my house and I said, what can I comfortably not, what would make me uncomfortable if I had to go one day without it? And of course, I know there's probably a lot of people who heard that like, wow, how weak are you if you can't go without something for one day? But hear me out. There are a couple things that you would be incredibly uncomfortable if you had to go even one day without it. Um, so for me, those things are toilet paper. If I ran out of toilet paper, and the scenario here is that I can't get to the store, don't focus on why I can't get to the store, why you're not able to get to the store, just that you're not able to, right? And we all know there's a million situations. Maybe my child's sick and I just can't get there, or maybe I'm not feeling well, maybe there's something else major going on, maybe it's not safe. We had flooding in our area a few days ago, and so maybe the roads out aren't safe and you have to stay, you have to move that to the next day, you're grocery shopping to the next day. Um, so that's kind of, don't focus so much on the why, but just that we can't get there for one day and what would be difficult to live without for that one day. So I put things like toilet paper, potentially laundry detergent. If you've backed up on laundry and you don't have it, then that puts you way behind. It'd make you uncomfortable. Soap, so I can't bathe. That makes me uncomfortable. um, Basic food, so like things like beans and rice, we can live off of that for a day, that's fine, but just food in general. Diapers, I would be very uncomfortable and so would my child if we ran out of diapers. Fortunately, she's starting to potty train, but we'd still be pretty uncomfortable without those for now. So what we're trying to do is either have a system for these items that transcends that, or stock enough that we always have enough of a stockpile that if it was a day or so, we could get through, right? So what I'm talking about here is, let's choose diapers, for instance. I either need to have enough on hand that I'm not going to become uncomfortable, or I need to have an alternative. So for us, that alternative is cloth diapers, because if I run out of cloth diapers, I can wash them, and that's not a big deal. So we have cloth diapers and cloth pull-ups and even newborn diapers, and we keep those on hand. And even though sometimes we use disposable diapers, if I were to run out and I couldn't get to the store for a day, I know I could use those and I would be all right. And so that's what we're looking at. So those things are very high priority for me. Laundry soap, toilet paper, soap, basic food, diapers, those are going to be a high priority. If I'm going to go to the store and I only have a set amount of money to prepare, those are the first items I'm getting. because it's going to be uncomfortable for me to go a day without them. And then I do it for another time period. So I say, okay, well, what if I couldn't have access to the store for a week? What could I go a week without before I start to get uncomfortable? Well, I'd have a hard time going without some comfort foods, you know? I can eat beans and rice, but after a week, that's going to get old and my morale is going to go down. So, variety of foods. Maybe conditioner for my hair. You know, I can handle stringy, gross hair for a little while, and then I'm probably going to get uncomfortable. Electricity. I can go a week without electricity, and then it's going to get old. It's going to get old not having those things. So, what can I do in place of that? That if I'm going to get uncomfortable after a week, what can I have so that I have these comforts, okay? I can store some comfort foods. I can either learn how to make my own conditioner or store it. I can have backups for electricity, like solar or a generator, so that I can have those things. And again, that's the second tier priority. And so I'm going to take care of these other things that I couldn't go one day without. Then after those things are taken care of, now I'm going to take care of things I would struggle going a week without, that it would be uncomfortable. And then I go to 1 month. Some examples that I have here are like chargers, washcloths, your stove, like cooking, cooking outside, and by other means is going to get really old after a month, right? You're going to need that 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 sustainability to be able to cook meals every day. And then I did 1 year out, which is towels, wash rags, clothes, shoes, mops, brooms, things that are going to start going out in my house that I use every single day. And if they go out, it's going to be uncomfortable for me. If I don't have a broom to sweep my floor and I got to like scoop the dirt up or something and figure that out or wash the floor every day, that's going to be very uncomfortable. So I'm really focusing on with my preps what's going to make me comfortable, and I'm prioritizing these things that are 1 day and 1 week out because those are more likely, right? It's pretty likely that this could happen even half a dozen times a year where I can't get to my grocery shopping when I need to, or I can't get to the store when I need to, and I need to have a little bit put back so that those things that would make me uncomfortable for a day, I have. You know, a week-long thing is a little less likely. A month-long without being able to have access to things is a little less likely, and a whole year not having access is even less likely. But what I'm doing here is I'm prioritizing these things for my comfort level to give myself wiggle room. Because if I know I can't go a day without toilet paper, then that means I need to have either an alternative or I need to have it stored. So that's what I learned, is that you really have to have that organization in those tiers, particularly when you live off grid for me, because we're so far away from everything. It's very, very common for me that I have to miss a day going to the store, or that we're close to running out of something maybe and I can't get to it yet. So having those stores are really important. The next thing that I learned is that becoming a minimalist is essential to survival. And I know that this is going to sound a little weird, like, oh, really? You have to be kind of this quirky, minimalist to survive. What I'm talking about is not this kind of new age minimalism where we're working on clearing the mind. I'm talking about practicality. If I use 15 different types of cleaners in my home, and that's how I keep my home functioning, then in the event of a collapse or in the event that I can't get places, I have to make sure 15 different things are stored. And that's not very practical. That's very hard. It's a lot of inventory to go through. There's a lot of things to have to process through. But if I use one cleaner and I clean everything with that, and I also maybe clean my body with it, I'm talking about Dr. Bronner's here, like some Castile soap or something like that. If I do that, then it's a lot more functional. I can store one item, lots of that one item, but one item, and then use it for multiple purposes. And this is kind of the core of minimalism, is being able to say, I'm only going to have a small amount of items. And you might have depth. You might be able to say, I'm only going to have one cleaning product, but you stock up 30 of those. Fine. But I'm only going to have one cleaning item that I do. Or one, certain outfits. Now I might buy extra of those, buy extra shoes so that I'm prepared for the future and store those. but I'm only going to use one type of shoe or two types of shoes. This was so important to us because we live in a very small space. And what I hear very often from people is, well, when the collapse happens, or when, stuff hits the fan, or when this all gets bad, I'm just going to go live in the woods, or I'm just going to go in my cabin in the woods. And reality is that that's completely fine if you can make that function day to day. If you can actually make that function. If you think about a tent, the size of a tent, you say, well, I'll have acres of land, and that's true. But the space that you're functioning in every day is very, very small. And because that space is very, very small, you have to take into mind how to make it run effectively. And if you have lots and lots of different items and it's all cluttered and in your space, you're not going to be able to do that effectively. And so that's where I learned that we need to be able to have depth, but not width, not variety of those things. The last thing I learned is not to take for granted the amount of time we have each day. Living off grid and a lot of the things that we do off grid and would have to do in the event of a major shift in our lives, our days are looking very, very different. It takes a lot longer to do every task. Right now, you might take you a couple of hours to throw laundry into a washing machine, wash it, and then throw it in the dryer and then fold it. And you might get behind on that, and I understand. Everyone gets behind on laundry. Now imagine you had to hand wash this laundry. Or imagine that you had a very small washer to do all of that laundry and you had to hang dry it. Those things take a lot longer, so don't take for granted the amount of time you have each day. It's also very likely that you'll still be doing these tasks. I think this doesn't get said very often because it goes along with the assumption that, oh, well, when this happens, I won't have a job, my kids won't be in school, everything will have fallen apart, and so those things that I'm doing normally every day to day aren't going to happen. And this might be a little bit out in left field, but I'm going to submit to you that that's not the truth. That during these times, you're still going to have to do those everyday necessities. I'm going to pull a little bit from history to kind of support my hypothesis here. During the Great Depression, everybody made stuff from scratch. We all hear the stories of, what did grandma do during the Great Depression? And oftentimes they made things from scratch, grew gardens, sewed clothing because they couldn't afford to buy it, repaired things, and went to work if they were able to, and sent their kids to school. They still did those things every single day. Their home life just looked a lot different. And so we need to be able to find a way to kind of bring all this together, to have this comfort, to be able to do the minimal possible, and to be able to do this in a way that we can fit it around the schedules that we currently have. Because we can't assume we can't assume that we're not going to have these schedules. It's much safer to assume that we will, and then if we don't, we have extra time, great. But it's much more likely that we're still going to have work and school and activities and all of those other things happening in the midst of having to cook things from scratch or do our laundry, out of a bucket or whatever that can look like. Just to summarize a little, try to find comfort over convenience. Find those things that are comfortable for you to be able to do with the schedule that you already have, utilizing minimalism and kind of this tiered way of preparing to prioritize what's most important for your family. I think many times when people do these videos, the things that they've learned are like how to grow effectively, food effectively, and I know we'll have videos like that too. At its core, though, being able to do this is important because the more self-sufficient that you are, the more free you are. The less you have to say yes to things you don't want to have to say yes to. If somebody comes knocking on your door and says, okay, well, you have to do XYZ in order to receive lights or receive food or whatever, you can say, no, thank you, I don't need to. I can manage this on my own. And these are the ways that you do that. You learn how to do it now. And then if that happens, or if the collapse happens and everything's very devastating, you continue to live. You don't have to learn a new way to live. You continue to live. And that's really my goal, is that if anything ever does happen that's big and catastrophic, I continue to live. And not start learning how to live then. If you guys have questions about anything else that I do, please just put it in the description or the comments below. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions and do any video suggestions that you'd like. All right, I hope you have an incredibly blessed day.